Within the United States, the massively lucrative parking industry is set to make over $144 billion in 2023. Big players in this industry, such as Last Parking and SP Plus, respectively generated $5 billion and $1.6 billion in 2022 and are set to earn even more this year. This makes the parking industry one of the most profitable industries in the world. And yet, no one really thinks about it, despite the industry playing a significant role in the economy and the lives of ordinary citizens. To give a scale, there presently is an estimated 1.5 billion cars in the world, of which 1.1 billion are passenger cars. The United States alone accounts for about 305 million of these cars, and with a population of 331 million people, there's an almost 1-to-1 ratio of cars to people in the country, placing it 7th on the global list of vehicles per capita. But, unlike other countries, the use of passenger cars is super critical for a functional American society. After all, most of the infrastructure and communities built in the country cater to the utilization of passenger cars. But with so many cars in the country and their importance in the movement of not just goods but people from one destination to another, it becomes necessary to have a place for vehicles to stay while their owners go on about their days. And this is where the parking industry comes into play. The parking industry has many players in it. Last Parking and SP Plus, for instance, are parking management service companies. They essentially manage parking lots and garages for owners of parking real estate. The owners of parking real estate vary, and most of them don't even use parking management service companies and instead manage it themselves. These parking real estates could be lands owned by individuals, lands owned by companies, or even lands owned by schools and churches. There's also parking spaces owned by a city. They could be either street parking or land explicitly set aside by the city for parking. These parking spaces play a role in shaping the traffic of a city, and they also influence the local economy greatly. And because of this, parking management service companies and owners of parking real estate have come to realize the importance of modernizing and digitizing the parking industry, and the need to implement technologies that will make it easier to manage parking spaces. These technologies will not only lead to increased revenue, but will also collect and analyze data that will help the stakeholders in the industry optimize parking operations as electric vehicles and other forms of transport such as drone delivery hit the market. These technologies range from mobile apps, cameras, sensors, and even AI. To understand the technologies that are being implemented into the parking industry and how and why they are being implemented, we need to start from the beginning and examine how parking has evolved over the past century. The history of parking naturally goes back to the production of cars. The giants of the car manufacturing industry in the United States, primarily Ford, General Motors, and Chrysler, cornered the car manufacturing industry in the early 1900s and produced cars in the hundreds of thousands and eventually millions as America experienced post-war prosperity after World War II. By the 1960s, there were approximately 63 million passenger cars on American streets. The mass adoption of cars was encouraged by the Federal Aid Road Act of 1916 and the Federal Aid Highway Act of 1921 and 1956. These acts expanded the footprint of the American interstate and highway system and provided mobility to the American populace. This increased mobility meant more and more Americans could live outside city centers, and this led to the prevalence of suburbs and shopping centers and created a feedback loop. More cars led to more suburbs, and more suburbs meant more shopping centers, and more shopping centers meant more people traveling to shop, which meant more cars on the street and in traffic, and therefore the need for parking spaces to accommodate them. But the thing with quote-unquote free parking at grocery stores and shopping centers is that they cost money to build and maintain. To account for this, the cost to maintain them is sometimes adjusted into the price of items purchased. However, unlike grocery stores and shopping centers, parking spots in cities and apartment complexes approach this differently. Some apartments, especially those that experience light traffic, offer free parking and simply include the cost of maintenance in the rent, with an option to pay premium prices for parking spots that shields a car from the elements. On the other hand, apartments located in cities, especially those within downtown areas, charge for all parking spots, not simply for maintenance, but as a byproduct of providing the convenience and privilege of being able to store a car within a downtown area. Some renters often opt out of this entirely and instead park on street because areas with less traffic are often provided free parking by the city. And during certain hours, particularly during mornings and nights, parking is also free. Aside from these exceptions, cities always charge for parking, and they do so by using parking meters. Parking meters can be found almost everywhere in a city, particularly in areas with high traffic. In New York City, for instance, you have parking meters with rates between $1 and $13. To pay for a parking spot, you have to use a parking meter. Parking meters started off as simple technological devices that simply took in coins in exchange for the right to park a vehicle on the street. They had a simple interface, and this interface displayed the amount of time left to park. It was first introduced in Oklahoma City due to the uncontrollable amount of traffic in the city during the 1930s when there were about 30 million cars on American streets. There has since been multiple iterations of the parking meter as technology has evolved and improved. They have gone from being fully mechanical to being digitized. Today, parking meters have circuit boards in them and can even connect to the internet and accept credit card and mobile payments. Their simple interfaces have also been replaced with dynamic and interactable interfaces. The humble parking meter, arguably the purest expression of capitalism, contributes greatly to the revenue of a city. For instance, in 2022, New York City generated over $1 billion from parking meters and camera and parking violations. To put it in simpler terms, parking meters generate a lot of money for cities. And so, it's important for cities to make decisions and implement systems and tools that aid in collecting this vital source of revenue. New York City, Chicago, and similar cities across the United States have all created apps that make it easier for car owners to pay for parking over the phone. In fact, the market for parking apps has exploded within the past few years. Car owners no longer have to get out of their cars and interact with parking meters. It's even possible to pay for parking ahead of time in certain locations. The boom in apps for parking has also led to data collection that is helping shape cities. The data collected varies from the model of the car to the owner of the car, the time it was parked, and so on. Data that helps paint a detailed picture of those living in a city and what they do. But that's a topic for another day. Parking meters and mobile applications are not the only technologies changing the parking industry. As mentioned before, the parking industry does not just involve cities, shopping centers, or apartments. There are many different players in the industry, including parking management service companies and real estate owners who have converted their lands to parking lots or garages. These players are revolutionizing the industry at a rapid pace. Parking management service companies like Class Parking and SP Plus are employing technology that aims to make parking almost seamless and efficient. And they are doing so by using sensors and cameras. These devices record and sense when a car has entered a parking lot. They then take a picture of the license so there's non-repudiation when it comes to either charges or violations. These sensors and cameras also calculate how many cars have entered a parking lot and provide real-time and accurate information to parking management service companies about the occupancy of their lot. This not only allows them to route cars to other parking lots they own, but also allows them to dynamically change pricing. Traditionally, the price for parking is static, with increases being manually made ahead of a big event, like a concert or a sports game. But with sensors and cameras, the price changes reflect real-time data. Speaking of real-time data, much like other industries, the parking industry is also being influenced by data and artificial intelligence. While it's not fully fleshed out yet, the parties involved in modernizing the parking industry see the potential AI can have as more modern cars come packaged with an autopilot functionality. This means they come equipped with GPS, sensors, and external cameras centrally managed by software. The parking industry intends to utilize this combined system of hardware and software to provide real-time data to drivers about available parking spots as they drive down through streets. This will not only provide a huge convenience to drivers, but will also help reduce traffic and boost revenue generation by efficiently navigating cars. To sum things up, the parking industry is undergoing an incredible transformation as it becomes more modernized and digitized. And through this transformation, the parking industry is becoming increasingly lucrative, with its future shining brighter with each transformation.